Hey everyone, nice to see you again. Today in this video I'm talking about one of those products where you know how there are some purchases where you'll just jump at the chance to get the thing. It just instantly speaks to you, you know you want it, you just go after it. And then there are other things that you keep kind of looking back on, you're like, do I need that? I don't know, it doesn't excite me very much, and then you just kind of end up with, okay, I'll buy it. That's the way I felt about this product, and I would say my opinion has changed somewhat as I've continued to use it. And I'm talking about this newest eyeshadow palette from LORAC. It's called Nude Necessities. This is what the box looks like, and you're thinking, oh great, yes, tell me about another nude eyeshadow palette. Well, this one, it's kind of funny. When I first opened it up, I was looking over all the shades, and I thought, wow, it's kind of lacking some really deep, dark shades. And then I about wanted to smack myself and say, no, this is the one palette that's come out that has nude in the name, and it actually looks nude, you know? It doesn't have those really dark smoky colors, and it's gonna really keep your eye look in a very nude, naturally contoured looking zone. So let's talk specifics. I'm gonna shine up my palette here for a second on my pajama pants. You can end up with a lot of fingerprints on this one. It's kind of like a gunmetal mirrored finish, and then it has a nicely sized mirror on the inside. Really love that. And then you've got your 4, 8, 12 shadows in here. I'm just gonna point out the finishes real quick and then show you the swatches, but the matte shades that you're working with in this palette are this white, a slightly like off-white beige just below that. Right in here you go a little bit deeper than that color on the outside. You got a matte warm brown right over here, a matte cooler brown, and then this matte very soft brown up in the top corner. This one is so close to seeming like a satin finish, I almost can't decide which one it is. Like, if I see a really concentrated swatch, I might think that's a satin shadow, but it really performs like a matte on the lids. These two soft taupe colors are, I think, like textbook satin finishes. Nothing at all metallic about them, but just a little more sheen than a matte shadow. And then your shimmery shadows, these two up here, you've got a golden champagne, a little bit deeper, more classic gold. Down here, a shimmery peach, and then a little bit deeper shimmery peach. Deeper. Why did that come out funny? Anyways, the shadows, I think, swatch really nicely. They do remind me of the classic feel of LORAC eyeshadows. Some of the mattes don't seem quite as rich just in the texture to touch them with your hands. They don't seem quite as rich as like a regular LORAC Pro palette would, but I still feel like they perform very much the same on the eyes. And as you look at the swatches, they are one swipe swatches. I'm trying to just create some level of consistency with, you know, the way they're going on. So all of these, I just swirled my finger in each shade and then swiped it once on my arm. When you're going into any of these shadows with a brush, you will notice, which is pretty typical of LORAC shadows, you dip a brush in, they do kick up a little bit of powder. Not all of them kick up a lot, but just something to be ready for, and definitely tap off the excess as you start to apply them. Like I said at the start, nothing in this palette goes too dark. I mean, these shades would be your deepest ones, and they're nothing more than medium browns, you know, one a little bit cooler, one a little bit warmer. And so what I think this lends itself to is a super natural looking eye look that's just going to mimic the natural contours of your eyes, the natural shadows that, you know, your crease creates and that kind of thing. You're not gonna be creating major contrast. You're not gonna be using these shades as liners, you know. There is some versatility that goes out the window when you're lacking really deep and dark shades. However, you do definitely have some differences in tone to work with. I look at the top and I think, you know, this contains some more golden shades. Then you've got really a cool taupey row, and then more of a warm brown going into peach type row. You can get different looks with this, but maybe the pattern that you use to apply them on your eyes isn't going to be drastically different because, you know, your crease shades are probably going to be one of these 2 or 3 colors down in here, but you could easily create a fully matte look or pull in one of the pops of shimmer. So who is this palette for? I would say if you're a person who grabs your eyeshadow palettes and you never find yourself using the darkest colors, this palette might be for you. If you work in a professional environment where you want your eyeshadow looks on a daily basis to look super natural, nothing overdone, this palette might be for you. I feel like I'm doing a Jeff Foxworthy, you might be a redneck here, but there is a crowd out there who I think would really appreciate this palette, and it's the people who just like these super natural looks every day. I think even if you are a hardcore matte user, I don't think you'd be too put off by the shimmers in this because they're not too loud. Now another thought is for a naturally contoured look, like they talk about the Shade and Light eye palette from Kat Von D as being an eye contour palette. Well, that contains some really deep dark colors as well that could double as liners, or maybe you just like using darker shadows. I do think that palette gives you a lot of versatility. I love that palette. I love that palette more than I love this palette, but I can also realize that not everyone wants or needs the dark shadows. Some problems with this palette might be the fact that the shades are not very uncommon at all. You know, you probably have a lot of colors like this, either in singles within other palettes. If you have a big eyeshadow collection, there's nothing really like, wow, that's just off the charts different, but that's not what this palette really sets out to be, so I don't hold it against it so much. And I do think some people might find a lot of convenience in having all of these shades all together. Another possible problem, as I've talked about, like contouring your eye and stuff like that, if you've got a really rich skin tone or a very deep tan skin tone, I wonder if these medium brown shades would provide you enough contrast. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might get a nice pop out of one of these champagne colors. Those are really pretty, very vibrant, but when you're looking for contrast, would those be enough? I would love to hear your feedback. If you've got a deeper skin tone, pick this up. Did this do enough for you? But if you're my skin tone, a little darker, a little lighter, I think it could be right on the money for creating a natural looking crease. So that being said, I'm going to cut to my little demo where I show you how I use it. First off, I'm just applying a base. I'm using this City Proof stick from NYC. It's, you know, claims to be like a colorless base, but it does do a little bit of neutralizing, as you can see on the lid. So I get it on the lid, kind of pull it up through the crease as well, so you have that protection from creasing. Then I'm going to use this kind of warm matte brown in my crease, so I'll go into that with my E25 brush from Sigma, tap off some excess there, and just start wedging this right in my crease. Then right next to that, there's a shimmery peach, so I'm going to pick that up with my Sonia Kashuk medium shadow brush, and I'll just pat that all over the lid. And this shade right here can be a really vivid highlight if you want it to. I'm going to apply it pretty sheer with my E40 brush just up under the brow. It's definitely not like a glittery frosty shade, but it does have some shimmer. But I just like to use it lightly so it just catches the light a little bit. I'm also going to use just a little angled brush, and you know, any small detail type brush would work here. And I'm just taking it right around the innermost corner. I think it provides a lot of brightness there. And then I'm going to just pick up a little bit of that shade on my finger, and I'm going to give it a little dab on the center of the lid. And then with a bare finger, just kind of dab back over that. Then I'm going to take one of these satiny finish taupe shades with a pencil brush, and I'm just going to take that across the lower lash line. I want it to be like an undetectable little bit of super soft definition down there. That's kind of what I'm going for. And one other thing that you can do if you want to like deepen up the crease just a little bit more, I was just kind of playing around on the other eye, and I used this exact blend E32 from Sigma. Something like a Sonia Kashuk small shadow brush could do this also, but I'm going back into this shade. But because this is a little bit smaller brush, you can get a bit more impact from that color. And I just kind of wedge that right out here in my, just the outermost corner. And you can get a little more depth. And then I'm going to use my Milani Shadow Eyes in Almond Cream, and I'm just going to do a quick sweep of that on the lower inner rim. And then I'm using this Physicians Formula Eye Booster pen. It's actually a very fine brush tip. I find it very easy to use and very similar to the Kat Von D tattoo liners. So I'm just going to go all the way across the lash line here. And then I'm just going to give the lashes a quick curl. And for just a more natural look all around, the other day I just skipped the liner, applied only this mascara, and my lashes still looked, you know, nice and lengthened out. But I'm going to add a false lash on top of this today, so that's why the liner's there. A little Clump Crusher water resistant on the lower lashes. And my Huda Beauty lashes in Samantha. I'm just going to pop those on and I'll be right back. So I realize this isn't maybe the most cut and dry review. I guess my overall thought is that this is a nice palette. I like it better than I did when I was just thinking. I saw it on the website. Will I buy it? Will I go for it? I've been very happy with the looks that I've created. I do feel like I can come up with different looks in different tones. Today I went warmer. I've gone cooler with other looks and I've been very happy with those also. Like I was saying before, I think there's a specific crowd for this palette and it's the people who like A, their neutrals, B, their light to medium shades, and C, maybe you just got a reason day after day to be wearing very natural, understated, muted, but still pretty eye looks. Anyway, that's my take on the Nude Necessities palette. I would love to open this up for discussion in the comments section. Let me know what you think about this thing, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!